Have you ever felt that sting of envy when you see someone achieving what you desire? That quiet whisper telling you that you're falling behind, that you're not enough, that someone else is living the life you should have. We all know that feeling, but what if I told you that jealousy isn't your enemy? It's a signal, a sign that points you toward your own growth. Today, we're going to learn how to jealousy-proof your mind, build unshakable inner strength, and walk with a calm power that cannot be shaken by the success of others. If this resonates with you, make sure to subscribe, because this journey toward inner mastery is just beginning.
1. Understanding emotional triggers. Jealousy is not random, it's triggered. It happens when something outside of you taps into an insecurity inside of you. Maybe someone bought the car you wanted, got the recognition you worked for, or lives the lifestyle you dream of. That sharp discomfort is a trigger, pointing at an unhealed wound. Instead of ignoring it or lashing out, the first step is awareness. Ask yourself, why does this make me feel threatened? What story am I telling myself about what their success means for me? When you decode the trigger, you remove its power to control you. Understanding emotional triggers requires a deep willingness to investigate the hidden beliefs and fears that quietly shape our perception. Jealousy is rarely about the external event itself. It is about the interpretation we attach to it. If you see someone else thriving, your mind might translate it into a message of your own inadequacy. You might subconsciously believe that if they are winning, then you are losing, as though life is a zero-sum game. But reality is not so limited. Recognizing that jealousy is essentially your own unprocessed pain reflected back to you allows you to step into self-awareness instead of self-sabotage. Consider how often jealousy arises in small, seemingly insignificant moments. A friend shares vacation photos and you feel a pang in your chest. A colleague's work is praised while yours goes unnoticed and your mood shifts. These are not just random fluctuations of emotion. They are signposts. They are invitations to look inward and ask, what does this moment reveal about the beliefs I hold about myself? Do I believe I am unworthy unless I achieve the same things? Do I believe that others' joy diminishes my own capacity for joy? Triggers, when understood correctly, are not enemies, but guides towards self-mastery. One of the most empowering practices is to reframe jealousy as a diagnostic tool. Instead of saying, I shouldn't feel jealous, learn to say, my jealousy is telling me something important about myself. Perhaps it reveals that you are neglecting a dream, or that you crave validation in areas where you doubt yourself. Jealousy shows you where the cracks are in your foundation. Healing begins when you turn curiosity toward those cracks, instead of covering them with denial or bitterness. When you treat jealousy not as a shameful defect, but as a messenger, you turn pain into information, and information into transformation. Ultimately, understanding your triggers is about reclaiming control over your emotional life. Triggers only have power when you remain unconscious of them. Once you bring them into the light of awareness, you begin to loosen their grip. Instead of reacting impulsively by comparing, complaining, or resenting, you pause and observe. This pause is where growth happens. It is in that space between stimulus and response that you can choose wisdom over reflex, peace over insecurity, and clarity over chaos.
2. Creating mental boundaries. Your mind is sacred space, but without boundaries, anyone's achievements or possessions can storm in and unsettle you. Mental boundaries mean reminding yourself that someone else's life is not your competition. You don't need to compare their timeline to yours. Their wins don't reduce your chances. Creating boundaries also means controlling your consumption. If social media feeds your envy, limit it. Protect your peace like a fortress. When your mind is shielded, jealousy has fewer doors through which it can enter. Mental boundaries begin with the recognition that your inner world is vulnerable to influence.
The constant exposure to curated images, success stories, and highlight reels on digital platforms can chip away at your sense of contentment if you are not vigilant. Without boundaries, you invite unnecessary comparison, and comparison is the breeding ground of jealousy. Creating boundaries is not about ignoring reality, but about curating what you allow into your consciousness. Just as you would lock the doors of your home to protect against intruders, you must guard your mental space from invasive comparisons that weaken your spirit. One practical step in building mental boundaries is to become intentional about the narratives you accept. If you believe life is a race, then every person ahead of you will feel like a threat. But if you adopt the mindset that life is a garden where each person blooms in their own season, then someone else's blossoming does not diminish your potential. Boundaries mean refusing to internalize every external standard of success. They mean defining what success, peace, and fulfillment look like on your own terms, so that outside noise has less power to disrupt your inner balance. Another essential aspect of mental boundaries is consumption control. Social media algorithms are designed to keep you scrolling by amplifying comparison triggers, lavish lifestyles, career milestones, physical appearances. If these images stir jealousy within you, you have a choice: continue feeding the fire or withdraw the fuel. Limiting exposure is not weakness, it is wisdom. When you step back from environments that stir envy, you reclaim the strength to focus on your own growth. A fortress is not built by chance, it is built by design. Guarding your mental space requires the same deliberate structure. Furthermore, boundaries are not only about limiting the negative, but also about fostering the positive. Instead of consuming endless stories about what others have achieved, create boundaries that prioritize inspiration over comparison. Follow people who uplift rather than provoke envy. Engage with content that nourishes rather than depletes. Direct your attention toward practices like journaling, meditation, or reading that strengthen your inner resilience. With firm mental boundaries, you live less at the mercy of external noise and more rooted in your own sense of direction. In such a state, jealousy finds no fertile soil in which to grow.
3. Practicing detachment and self-control. Jealousy thrives when we attach our happiness to what others have. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you stop clinging. You learn to separate your sense of worth from external measures. Self-control plays a big role here. When you feel jealousy rising, pause before reacting. Instead of gossiping, criticizing, or secretly resenting, breathe and let the emotion pass like a wave. Mastering detachment and self-control is how you keep your inner world stable, no matter what storms rage outside. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference, but in truth it is a higher form of freedom. To detach is to release the unhealthy grip of comparison and external validation. It is to say, I am not diminished because someone else is shining. This perspective creates space between you and the emotion of jealousy. Instead of fusing your identity with the rise and fall of external circumstances, you cultivate a stable ground within yourself. Detachment allows you to appreciate others' successes without interpreting them as threats to your worth. In this sense, detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. Practicing self-control in moments of jealousy is an act of discipline. When envy strikes, the impulse is often to lash out, whether through gossip, sarcasm, or silent bitterness. But self-control teaches you to resist the immediate gratification of venting and to choose restraint instead. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you weaken jealousy's hold over you. Over time, this pause becomes second nature. You develop the ability to observe jealousy without being consumed by it. Just as a wave rises and falls, the emotion passes, leaving behind a calmer and clearer mind. A key element of detachment is learning to shift your focus from others' lives back to your own. When you detach, you stop measuring your worth by comparison and start measuring it by alignment. How aligned you are with your values, your goals, and your growth. This redirection of focus is powerful because it places your energy back in the only domain you can truly control, yourself. Jealousy fades when you realize that no amount of someone else's success determines your potential. Self-control allows you to stay rooted in this truth even when external temptations to compare arise. Ultimately, detachment and self-control are not about suppression, but about mastery. You are not pretending jealousy doesn't exist, you are simply refusing to let it rule you. You learn to observe the emotion, acknowledge it, and release it without attaching your identity to it. This is what it means to live with stability. Not the absence of storms, but the ability to stand unshaken while they pass. When you cultivate detachment and self-control, you do not become less human, you become more resilient, more centered, and more free.
4. Replacing envy with admiration. Jealousy says, I want what they have. Admiration says, I'm inspired by what they achieved. The difference is energy. Jealousy drains you. Admiration fuels you. When you envy someone, you are essentially waging an internal war against yourself, measuring your worth against another person's success. It eats away at your joy and blinds you from seeing your own potential. But admiration, on the other hand, lifts you. It redirects your focus from scarcity to possibility, from bitterness to growth. By practicing admiration, you transform competitors into guides, and suddenly you stop resenting success and start learning from it. Think about the people you envy. Perhaps it's someone who is wealthier, more confident, fitter, or more skilled than you. Instead of resenting them, ask yourself, what did they do differently? What mindset carried them forward? What effort, discipline, or sacrifice shaped their achievement? Jealousy looks at the surface, what they have now. Admiration digs deeper into the journey, seeing the sweat, the choices, and the years of persistence that made it possible. This perspective shift allows you to recognize that most victories are not overnight miracles, but results of consistent effort, and effort is something you can always replicate. Envy traps you in comparison, while admiration liberates you into curiosity. Imagine two paths, one where you sulk and stew over someone else's success, and another where you study them like a mentor from afar. Which path grows you? Which path keeps you stuck? Every time you feel envy arise, treat it as a signal, a spotlight showing you what you secretly desire. Instead of drowning in resentment, turn it into a compass. If their success sparks jealousy in you, perhaps it points towards something you deeply value. That awareness alone can transform envy into fuel for your own journey. Stoic philosophy reminds us that envy is irrational because it places your happiness in the hands of someone else's fortune. You suffer not because they succeeded, but because you allowed their success to become a threat to your self-image. But in truth, their gain takes nothing away from you. There's no shortage of opportunity in the world, only a shortage of perspective. By reframing envy into admiration, you step out of the false game of competition and into the expansive realm of self-improvement. You realize that another person's success doesn't diminish your potential. It illuminates what is possible. Admiration also makes you more magnetic in relationships. Nobody enjoys being around bitterness, but everyone respects genuine appreciation. When you celebrate others sincerely, you strengthen bonds instead of eroding them with silent jealousy. People feel safe with you, knowing that their growth doesn't threaten you. Over time, this generosity of spirit positions you as someone trustworthy, supportive, and wise. Ironically, the more you admire others without resentment, the more admiration you attract in return. Life has a way of rewarding those who genuinely celebrate growth, both theirs and others. So the practice is simple yet profound. When you catch yourself envying someone, pause and pivot. Ask, what can I learn from them? How can their success inform my path instead of diminish it? Let admiration replace resentment, and you'll notice that what once poisoned your spirit now empowers it. The victories of others stop being a source of pain and become a source of guidance, courage, and drive. Envy makes you small. Admiration makes you expansive. Choose the latter, and you'll find yourself rising alongside those you once envied. 5. Building a calm, powerful presence. True strength is not loud or reactive. It is calm, grounded, and unshakable. Many confuse aggression or dominance with power, but real power does not need to announce itself. It is felt in the way you carry yourself, in the steadiness of your tone, and in the clarity of your actions. When you jealousy-proof your mind, you begin radiating this quiet confidence. You stop being tossed around by the emotional storms of comparison and insecurity. Instead, you stand firm like a mountain, silent, steady, yet impossible to ignore. A calm presence is magnetic because it signals security. People instinctively gravitate toward those who are composed under pressure, who do not need to prove themselves through arrogance or hostility. Your calmness becomes a refuge for others. In a world full of noise, volatility, and ego-driven posturing, the one who remains steady shines the brightest. People respect calmness because it shows mastery over the self, and that is the foundation of every form of leadership. To command yourself is to command the respect of others. Think of the leaders, mentors, or figures in history who inspired you most. Were they the ones who constantly shouted and competed for attention, or the ones who led with composure, clarity, and quiet strength? Calmness doesn't mean weakness. On the contrary, it reflects immense inner discipline. To remain calm when others are losing themselves requires emotional mastery. It requires you to anchor your worth internally rather than let it be dictated by comparisons, envy, or external chaos. This is why jealousy-proofing your mind makes your presence more powerful. You stop leaking energy through insecurity and instead conserve it for decisive action. A calm, powerful presence also reshapes how others treat you. When you are reactive, people can manipulate you. They push your buttons and watch you unravel. But when you are calm, you become untouchable. Others quickly realize they cannot sway you with drama, gossip, or comparison games. Your groundedness becomes both armor and influence. It shields you from negativity while also inspiring others to rise to your level. In this way, calmness is contagious. Your steadiness helps regulate the emotions of those around you. Practically, cultivating this presence means training your mind daily. Meditation, journaling, breathwork, and reflective solitude all build inner stability. Stoic practices such as rehearsing worst-case scenarios, separating what is within your control, and practicing detachment also strengthen this composure. Over time, you stop reacting impulsively and start responding with intention. The more you do this, the more natural calmness becomes. And eventually, people will notice without you saying a word. They will feel it in your energy, your words, and your silence. At its core, a calm presence is about mastery of self. It is about refusing to be a slave to comparison, envy, or emotional chaos. When you cultivate this energy, you not only protect yourself from jealousy, but also create space for growth, opportunity, and respect. Others will trust you more, follow you more, and admire you more, not because you demand it, but because you embody it. In this way, calmness becomes both shield and sword. It protects you from harm while empowering you to influence, inspire, and lead.
Jealousy will always try to creep in, but when you understand your triggers, create strong boundaries, practice detachment, replace envy with admiration, and build a calm, powerful presence, you rise above it. You no longer waste energy comparing or competing. You use that energy to grow. And that is how you jealousy-proof your mind and build unshakable inner strength. If this message spoke to you, hit subscribe and join me in mastering the inner battles that define the quality of our lives. Remember, your power is not in what others have, but in how unshakable you become within yourself.